All right, today we're going to be building a ping pong paddle from scratch. Um, those are the rubber sheets. This is the ping pong paddle, which still has the plastic wrapper on it. Before we start gluing anything, I need to seal the paddle um, with this wood sealer. So when it's time to remove the rubber sheets, it doesn't strip the fibers off of the paddle. And I'll be applying the sealant with your typical paintbrush. Okay, I'm gonna cut off the plastic wrapping off of the paddle, and I'm doing this at an angle because I don't want to damage the wood. So now that I've made my surgical incision, I'm gonna tear it off. And in the paddle, they have a card. I guess this is very popular in China, where there's ping pong players, they go missing and they put them in missing cards. And if have you seen that person? Call it in. Their family's probably looking for them. And here is the paddle. It feels very light. I think it was only like 80 grams, maybe a little bit less. It's supposed to be offensive. It's very comfortable, and I'll be kicking a lot of butt with it. I forgot to add one note. The reason that you want to seal your paddle, it's because it's made of wood, and wood absorbs moisture, and moisture rots wood unless you give it ample time to dry before you store it. So it's better to seal it. You also need to seal the handle part, because if you don't seal it, when you play, your hand will sweat and the handle will absorb the sweat, and it will add a little bit of weight and it'll look pretty nasty. So always be sure to seal your paddle. Okay, now we're going to apply the sealer, which is polyurethane. It's water-based, and I got this at the Home Depot. I believe it was about $6 or $7. We're gonna put this on the paddle, and it dries pretty quickly. I'm gonna give it about maybe 10 minutes before I put some on the wood parts that I never covered because I was holding it. I'm putting the top back on because I forgot to shake it like a Polaroid picture. So I don't want to make a mess. I'm kind of lightly pushing on it. Okay, so now I'm gonna shake it. Just to make sure that it's mixed in real well. And that should do it. Okay, so I'm gonna seal every part until I get to the part where I'm holding it, because obviously I don't want to seal my fingers. And this is how we do it. There's no way of really screwing this up. Just make sure that every part of the paddle gets wet with this sealant. Try to maneuver the brush to go with the grain. So as you can see, the grain is going in that direction, so my brush is going in that direction. Okay, just another dab right here to make sure I covered all of that. Okay, so that does that side. So now I'm gonna do the other side. Here I go sideways because it's kind of impossible to get it in there, and I want to get the entire paddle. If you miss a spot, as long as it's a pretty tiny spot, promise you it's not the end of the world. Your paddle overall will still be pretty protected. Don't have a panic attack. And try not to splatter the sealant, because when it dries, it does have kind of like a hard plasticky type coating. So if you have something that is of any value to you that you don't want damaged, don't get it wet. Okay, so the sides also need to be sealed. So I'm lightly brushing them. As you can see, there was like overflow. So I'm taking advantage of that overflow, putting it on the paddle. Putting it on the brush and onto the paddle. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I got it all. Now I'm just brushing it lightly to kind of even it out, to make sure there aren't any lumps or anything like that. Okay, it looks pretty good. Now I'm actually gonna do as much of the handle as I can. Without getting any on my fingers. And then when it dries, in about 10 minutes, I'll come back and I'll get the rest of this wood that I missed. And this is this polyurethane is sandable. So let's say that it dried and it left a little bump or little lump or something. You can go back and you can sand it, and it'll be perfect. Okay, so that's it. That's it for now. We'll be back in a few minutes to finish the part that I was holding. Okay, now the sealant has dried, and I just need to finish off by sealing the part that I couldn't get to before. I'll try to avoid this little acrylic sign thing, but if you get some sealant on there, it's no big deal. It's not gonna damage your paddle whatsoever. If anything, it'll just protect it a little more. And when the sealant dries, it's actually gonna make whatever color your paddle was, it's gonna make it just a little bit darker. And every time I've done this, the final color actually looks a little nicer than what you started with. Okay, now we'll just let this dry.